Welcome back to a new episode of Novelio. Today is Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. I'm going to continue on with my reading of Hot Winter Sun by Jessica Russell. After visiting his father, who had requested Catherine's presence, Julian discovered she was not in the house and asked Lance if he had seen her. "Why, she's at Sir Robert's grave. She's always there this time of day, sir." Julian thanked him and immediately made his way to the stables. He was disturbed to discover she had chosen to walk rather than ride. He came upon her quietly and saw that she was planting rosemary. As she moved to the other side of the grave, his presence startled her, and he noticed her hand flew to her heart. "Catherine, it's me. I'm sorry." "My God, I thought you were a ghost. Why do you stand there in Robert's clothes?" She turned angrily away. "Robert's clothes?" He looked down, frowning as if he had either not understood her or had forgotten what he was wearing. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Planting rosemary. I'm sorry, did I need your permission first?" she asked with sarcasm. "Catherine, I just wanted to know. So you came here to try to make me think you're his specter. You should be proud of yourself, it worked." He could see tears forming in her eyes as she turned away and went back to work, as if she had simply dismissed him. "That's not what I meant to do. Deep down you know that. I know nothing about you except you are cruel. Leave me alone." "Catherine," he began again, utterly horrified, but nothing more came. Her words stunned him sharply, and he was suddenly overcome with a desire to prove her wrong, but did not know where to begin. The truth was that he had been cruel, hideously so. Now there seemed to be a sign every day to tell him how wrong he'd been. Not only about his ridiculous accusation that she had some hand in Robert's death, which he'd never really believed, but also because he suspected her of being disingenuous. He watched her as she pushed down the earth around the last plant as she fought back tears. Was he fighting back tears as well? She stopped for a moment and he realized she must have been working for some time. "Can I help you?" he asked quietly. "I would like to." She leapt to her feet and instead of answering his question cried, "For God's sakes, why are you in his clothes?" He looked at her and then at his attire in utter confusion. "I'm in my own clothes," he said and took a step toward her. "Catherine, Yours is the dark gray," she shouted. "Well, Rose brought me this one," he said, frowning. "For God's sake, I didn't do it on purpose." "Yes, because you don't notice things like that. Robert always switched them back. They'd do it with the brown ones, too. He always noticed. He paid attention to things." She went to walk past him and he caught her arm, but she jerked away with such aggression that he was momentarily taken aback. She began walking again, but he stayed beside her. He was afraid she would break into a run just to get away from him, but she walked quite slowly. "Catherine, do you want me to get a horse for you? You seem exhausted." She did not look at him or answer him, and he kept silently at her side. "Since you are intent on walking with me, regardless of what my wishes are, I will tell you something. I have every intention of leaving as soon as possible, but your father's weakened state and his pleasure at seeing me leads to the conclusion that I should stay until he passes," Julian finished. We all know he is dying," Julian interjected, "and he would not want you to leave at all," he added. "Then don't mention it to him," she said, tersely, "as there's no reason he should be told. I will stay until the end, unless that is my own father kills me first." "Good heavens, Kathy, don't say such things. He won't come here. Remember how bombastic he was at the burial? Yet he didn't have the nerve to show up in here the next day as he threatened to. He will come. After what I did, he will never let that go. It was the first time I stood up to him in my entire life. He was furious. Nothing will keep him away. He will be here eventually, no matter who tries to prevent it." They had arrived at the last corpse just before the manor came into view, and she stopped and turned to him, breathing heavily. "I will answer you if you allow me to speak to you for a moment," he said, feeling no guilt about making the most of her extreme fatigue. "Very well," she said dully. "Of course you can stay. This is your home, but there's something else I want to say. I am a dreadfully impetuous person, and my moods have always gotten the better of me. But I am so horrified about my behavior of late that it is difficult to even find words. I'm so sorry for how I've acted towards you. I have repented to God, so help me, and I would like to say I am sorry and hopefully receive your forgiveness as well. Or is it too late for that?" "Far too late," she answered at once and swept past him into the garden. He stood there for a moment under a blanket of depression. He did not want to face his feelings for her, which were becoming more and more apparent every day, but not just to him. However, the latter was something of which he was entirely unaware. Catherine went to see Lord Justin that night, and the first thing he spoke of was Julian. Catherine, do not hate Julian. He loved Robert. There were never two brothers who were closer. They were almost as one person. But he is not of Robert's nature. He cannot cry or mourn. He must rage at fate and focus his anger on someone. Forgive what he said to you, daughter. He cannot help his actions sometimes. 'Tis just his nature. He is reckless and temperamental. He is his mother all over again. One of the wild ones in this world. Do not hold it against him, I beg of you. Being unable to do what he was asking of her, Catherine inquired about who told him of Julian's accusations. She wished whoever it was had been silent, not because she wanted in any way to protect Julian, but because she felt it was too much for his father to bear. That along with everything else, he must now deal with the knowledge of this bitter feud between his son and daughter-in-law. He told me himself, daughter. He said he ranted at you in an unforgivable way and would do anything to make it up to you, but you have completely shut him away. I know my son, Catherine. He is truly horrified at his actions. He regrets everything he said to you, but is lost at how to make amends. Remember, he loved Robert too. Please remember that, child. Do not lose sight of it. Whatever you may think of him at this moment, he is a man who can love deeply, and he is destroyed by his brother's death. They were almost as one person. He is lost without him. Robert was a steadying force in his life, the one he leaned on, ever so much more than he realized. Robert was his anchor, and now he is adrift with his rage and grief. He will find it difficult to go on in this world without him, and I fear for him. Please have mercy on him. At this, some of the ice around Catherine's heart began to melt. Yes, I always felt that when they came to my father's shop, she said honestly. She remembered them on many occasions, and despite how different it seemed in later years, it was true that they were almost like two of the same person. But Julian was frightening. He was too overpowering, too emotional, too quick to anger. And now how was she to believe that he had suddenly changed his mind about her? It did not seem possible that he truly came to regret the way he treated her. People do not change overnight. They do not suddenly develop different personalities, even if a tragedy has taken place. She didn't trust him and could not wait to get away, but she could not hurt her father-in-law when he was not long for the world. She forced herself to tell Lord Justin that she would forgive his son. Whatever Julian was, the two brothers had loved each other dearly, and she willed herself to forgive him for the sake of her dead husband. The next morning she did not stray far, and even put off going to Robert's grave. She waited for her father-in-law to ask for her, but it wasn't until late in the day when Rose finally came with the request. As soon as she saw him, Catherine began to cry. Come closer, child, he said. She went over to the bed and sat down, straining to hear every word as she knew that he was dying. I wondered what happened when you didn't call for me this morning, Catherine said. Nothing is ever going to happen to me on this earth again, sweetheart. No, don't say it. Don't leave me, Catherine cried. I can do naught else. Dearest, my body fails me. Losing Robert did something to me. It has hastened my death. It was too much. I feel myself weaker every day. Alas, there is only so much a strong will can do when the body fails. Catherine, who would kill my beloved son? He cared for everyone and was loved by all. Why does it always seem those are the ones who are taken? I am asking you things you cannot answer. I just lay here and wonder why it had to be. And I am so sorry that now you must carry on without him. That thought depresses me beyond words. You are strong, though, and you will push through and live on. You must. How Robert loved you. He was never happier than he was the day he brought sweet Catherine home. You have been the whole world to him, his beautiful and loving wife. Be strong for his sake. Yes, I will carry on and make Robert proud of me, she said, not believing a word of it. Even as she spoke to him, she wondered how she was finding the strength to rise each day, and worried that her own will to live was only a determination to remain in the home until her father-in-law passed away. The two had developed such a bond, such a friendship, that she could never have gone while he was still lived. Concerning tomorrow, however, how would she feel? Is it possible to will oneself to die? No. There are the children and Christopher. Jumbled and incoherent thoughts ran through her head as she stayed by Lord Justin's bedside until the maids came to light the candles. And Julian loves you, Catherine. Don't ever doubt that, he said. He meant to say Robert's name, she thought. His mind wanders. He talked then of the past, of that other Robert and Floriana and his own wife. Then his words made less sense and his grip on her hand became weak. She knew then that he would not see another sunrise and told Rose to summon the family. Although she knew her father-in-law would want her to stay, she felt that etiquette demanded she allow those who had lived there their whole lives with him to also be those at his deathbed. Julian was the first to come. Just as Catherine was exiting the room, "Catherine," he said immediately, "if you are pleased to stay, we are pleased to have you here at this time." "No," she replied blandly, "it would not be proper." She quietly left as the others filed into the room, and before night completely fell on the 10th of November, 1644, Justin Bradshaw died. "Perhaps the girl is a witch," Lizette whispered, at Lord Justin's burial 2 days later. "That is a horrible thing to say. You should be ashamed of yourself," said Matilda Frenshaw. Lizette lifted her shoulders with a rather unattractive smirk on her face. "Well, you cannot deny that quite a few bad things have happened since she came to Briarwood. First Robert, now his father, and don't forget Lance's illness." "Lance had a temporary malady. People become ill and recover all the time," Matilda replied, "and it is not so odd that Lord Bradshaw, in his weakened state, would fail badly after hearing about his son's murder. I would not try to stir up even more trouble by putting it in people's minds that Catherine is a witch. That's utter nonsense. At any rate, I heard she is leaving and not coming back. Therefore, I think you should kindly allow her to maintain a good reputation until she goes." "She's certainly not leaving the splendor of Briarwood to go back to where? To her brute of a father, and to whom else could she go?" "Well, I heard she intends to go, and I think you should try to have more respect for her and the family at a time like this." That evening the constable came to discuss Reginald's son Edward, and he asked Catherine if she believed that Edward was a radical as his father, and would go as far as to kill a member of the royalist household in the name of religion. Everyone looked at her as she thought about the question, and she eventually said, "No, I do not believe it of Edward. His relief was genuine. He was happy and took much solace in the fact that he had left his father's home. When he took his new possession here, he began to dress less somberly and enjoyed life. He is even interested in our housekeeper, Sarah, and she is as far from a Puritan as one could be, although he tells his father differently." "'Tis enough information for now," the constable said. "It does not seem as if he is a likely suspect. No one remembers seeing him at the exact time, but I would need more to go on than just that, as he appears to have less of a motive than Reginald or Blake, and we have not even been able to build up a case against them." "Well, I want this matter dealt until it is solved," Julian said, "and I warn you, Carleton, I do not intend to be patient." "Have done, Julian," Richard said. "Harassing the man will not help matters." "I mean what I say," he replied, and with that got up and walked from the room. At the same time, Catherine had entered her apartments to find Sarah sitting on the bed, folding the last of the few things she had selected to take with her. "Perhaps I could put a curse on this house when I came here, Sarah." "Lizette, she is never right about anything or anyone. She's a frivolous, shallow troublemaker, and she is not well liked by many people. Her issue with you is that she had her sights set on Robert, and then suddenly he was married. She will chase Julian now, but he will not have her either, because he is not the marrying kind. I am sorry you had heard her say that." "You heard it too?" Catherine said, rising from the bed to gather the few pieces of jewelry she meant to pack. "Yes," sighed Sarah. "No one thinks anything can be heard in that part of the arbor from the benches, but voices travel. She should not be welcomed in this house any longer. But alas, that is not my decision. Thank you for being so good to me, Sarah. I hope some day I will see you again, but I don't know how or where." "I hope, too, that we will be reunited," Sarah replied, not believing it would happen. "I want to go one last time to Robert's grave," and Sarah nodded. At the door, Catherine turned back and said, "Promise me you will plant rosemary there?" "Oh, my lady, I would be happy to."